Let's do
Yeah. I'm
it.
so excited. And there are like clearly a couple people who just requested to join because I think you're the spotlight speaker. So how about that?
Oh,
Um,
yay. Fun stuff.
Yay. So I want to officially shine a light on our awesome spotlight speaker and tell y'all a little bit more about Amanda Rivera before we jump right in. And as people are hopping on, I met Amanda not that long ago, but
Hmm.
it's funny how when you feel someone's energy and you meet someone, you just intuitively, like immediately jive with their message and their way, right? And so
Yeah.
when I first found out about you, I knew that you were the host of this thing called the Thought Leader Academy. I knew that
Hmm.
you coach and you're like a brand guru. I had heard your name connected to branding, stuff like that. I know
Hmm.
you coach a lot of clients to help them increase their kind of brand visibility, and you help
Yeah.
folks build brand partnerships, and some of your clients have had partnerships with big companies like Trello and ManyChat and Agora Plus. Is that right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can pronounce that one. But yeah, so it's such an honor to have you. You're such an incredible, fearless leader, and you embody what it means to be a courageous leader in the way that you show up with your community with just true authenticity and grace and commitment to serving. And so,
Love that.
welcome. Coco's here. uh, so yeah, just welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really pumped to be here. Let's do this.
All right, so we're gonna jump right in, y'all, because
Hmm.
Amanda's streaming in live from LA, the traveling warrior over there, and we're gonna maximize our time together today. So let's just jump right in, and I want to share. So the theme of this whole week is about stepping into our spark and being even more
Hmm.
courageous. The folks in this community are already courageous. I see them as folks who are stepping out and speaking up in powerful ways already. And
Yep.
so this week is all about like really embracing that this leadership of being a courageous leadership is really a muscle that we have to work on and flex. And so
Mm.
each prompt we've been kind of digging deeper, and I say like peeling away the layers of the onion that help us better kind of speak up for what we really, really care about, right?
Yeah.
And so the first question I'm asking all the Spotlight speakers is, what's your definition of courageous leadership? And perhaps how was that definition formed?
So first off, I want to honor Cassette. She is like killing it in the comment section right now. Love
Oh,
you, Coco.
yes.
um,
Oh my
and
gosh. I
courageous
love
leadership at its core, it really comes down to integrity,
it.
right? So what separates, I always say what separates a leader from a dictator is integrity and giving service for your audience. It's not about you, it's
Mhm.
about them,
Mhm.
always. And so a courageous leader is someone who steps into always doing what's right, whether they're being seen for it or not. So, something I like to tell people who are first starting out online or who are in entrepreneurship and they want to be this industry leader in their space, or they want to be this known personal brand or the next Gabby Bernstein, Tony Robbins, or whoever,
Mhm.
is you got to really absolutely love service to your core. Like
Mhm.
you need to be with a heart of gold of loving service and loving your people and loving your tribe and how you can serve them. And you
Mhm.
serve only from your overflow. So
Mhm.
put a heart emoji in the comment section below if you've ever felt or gotten yourself in a position where you were like this martyrer, where you were giving, but not giving to yourself at the same time.
Mhm.
Because that's like putting smileys and hearts all over the place. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I've done that as well. And you can't give from an empty cup. You can only give from a full cup, and then you could only give from the overflow of that cup. So
Mhm.
being able to take care of yourself, have something to give, and then focus with integrity and service, so that you can support the tribe you are being called to support.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I love that you invited the folks to comment in the box. And that reminded me to say, we had a lot of people hit me up and say they're going to be joining for the replay. So if you're on Team
Mm-hmm.
Replay, comment in the box and let us know what's resonating, what this sparks for you as you're watching.
Yay!
And if you're hopping on live, definitely join us and join the conversation. And throughout the conversation, feel free to chime in with any questions or reactions, connections.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dialogue. So we want you guys to be a part of it. Awesome. So how did that definition get formed? Like, can you tell a story about kind of how that, when was the first time that you realized that there was a difference between leadership and courageous leadership?
So it actually went back to, I want to say this was 4th or 5th grade. This is when it first, I really started realizing this. So when I was growing up, my mom really instilled in me about like being nice, and like, you know, when as a lot of young women were told to be nice. But she really made it clear that it's not just to be nice to be a doormat, but to be kind. That's the definition, is be compassionate, be loving. And loving can be like badass, like calling people out. And loving can also be, you know, being softer. But the key word was be loving. And so I remember I think it was 4th grade. There was a recess, and so everybody was outside. We were all like running around doing crazy stuff. And there was this big hill in the playground area. And one of my friends, and I've noticed this with a lot of different like girl groups, like growing up, this has kind of been like the theme. And one of my friends, she ended up getting into an argument with another girl who I was also friends with. And what ended up happening was that other girl brought a whole community of girls against my one friend and was like kind of like mean girl status. And a whole bunch of them were on that hill. And they were like, you need to stop. They told me, they're like, you need to stop being friends with Alicia because she's not a good person. And it was all these girls against this one girl. And here I am, I'm like standing with my friend Alicia, and I'm friends with both of them. But in that moment, that's when I had to make a choice where it's like, do I go with the mainstream crowd? Do I go with everybody? Like, if I choose to be friends with Alicia, then that means I'm going to lose the tribe. I'm going to lose the community. I'm going to lose, you know, all these people who I thought were my friends as well. And I become an outsider too by sticking up and being an ally to my friend. Yeah. And so in that moment, I ended up saying no. I'm like, this isn't right. This doesn't feel good. And in that moment of saying that, the teacher walks over and is like, what the heck is going on here? And then that whole group of girls who were attacking that one girl got in trouble. And so that was my first experience with courageous leadership, is you're going to be put into situations that are going to feel uncomfortable, where you're going to lose friends, where people aren't going to understand you, and where you're going to be on the side of the outsider if you say yes. But if you lead with integrity, if you ask yourself, does this feel right? You're always going to end up making the right choice that's going to be right in the long term. So in the moment, it might feel uncomfortable. Like in that moment, that I didn't see the teacher coming up behind us. Like I didn't see like anything that would have said like, oh, that would end up with a good outcome. I just was like, this doesn't feel right. And I'm willing to, you know, lose all my friends, be an outsider, be bullied, to stand up for what's right.
Wow. Wow, what a powerful story. I think everybody, and comment in the box if you can make a connection to a similar experience in grade school. I shared a story this morning about an
Mm-hmm.
experience in grade school. I feel like so much of where this muscle first starts is in those early childhood experiences where we're
Yep.
bumping up against um, pain for the first time or confusion for the first time. And if you can relate with that experience, or if you've ever felt like the one who was being bullied or the one that was feeling torn, or maybe you have some experiences on the mean girl side, this is a judgment free zone. Cause I think, like I always
Mm-hmm.
say, hurt people, you know, people
Yep.
who, those girls were probably in a ton of pain and they are
Mm-hmm.
projecting it out onto other people. But
Yeah.
kudos, man, for showing courage and showing leadership at such a young age. That's really powerful.
Yeah, it
Really.
just didn't feel right. And so like I think when it comes down to it, and how to relate it to entrepreneurship as a leader, right? Is you're gonna get opportunities along the way that are all tests. They're all tests to your integrity. So are you going to do the get rich quick scheme, or are you gonna take your time and build up your brand and build up something solid? Are you going to create something with the intention of like, what legacy is this going to create? Or are you going to do it with the intention of, is this going to make me money quick, fast? And the thing is, you're always playing two games in life. You're either playing the numbers game or you're playing the impact game. Numbers game is, how many followers do I have? How much money is in my bank? How many people say I'm awesome? Like, it's just numbers. You're just counting numbers, how many things I have. And most people get caught up because that's the default setting, is the numbers game, right? But what ends up being the real work is shifting into, how can I do impact, right? What's the impact game?
Yes.
And the impact game is different, because the impact game is, did I make someone smile today? Did I
Yeah.
feel good about myself today? Like, did I have an amazing coaching call that really touched someone's heart? Like, that stuff is going to end up getting you those numbers you're looking for anyways, but you're going to love the process more and you're going to be happier for it.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that start for you? I'm just curious. Like as an entrepreneur, when did you first intuitively, was it just organic? Was it always been intuitive for you? Or was there a moment in your life that as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a professional and what have you, that you realized, I have to choose courage over comfort. I have to slow down so I can ultimately stay in integrity. Was there a moment that you actually kind of solidified that belief? Because it's so powerful and so strong.
Yeah. um, okay, so I ended up living in Texas, right?
No
I
way.
was living in Dallas, Texas. This was, I want to say I was around like 24, 25. So this was like back in like 2015. And my parents were going through the nastiest divorce. My mom was distraught, my dad was distraught, and me and my brother were distraught as well, because my dad ended up fathering a baby out of wedlock, who I love. I love my baby sister. She's amazing. But there was so many lies that were coming up to the forefront. And there was just, I had just started my marketing agency around that time. I was like beyond broke. I was, not creating contracts that honored myself. It was just like, that I didn't have the right boundaries in it, because I was just learning business as I went. Looking back, if I would have had a mentor or a coach, way smoother. But I was trying to piecemeal it all together and do it myself. And so I ended up getting into a huge fight with my mom one day, because she was like, you need to choose me or your dad. And I was like, I'm not going to choose either. That doesn't feel good. Back to the integrity part. And so I ended up getting kicked out of the house. And that I like packed my stuff really quick. And I had my car. I put everything I had into the trunk of my car. And I called up like my two best girlfriends at the time and stayed over there. I was like sleeping at different relatives' houses for like weeks on end. Whoever would like let me stay there. And one of my friends at the time, she was like, I'm sick and tired of not knowing where you're sleeping every night. Just stay with me. And so I ended up staying with her for a solid 2 months. And I had a family friend who I always felt was like a second mom, who was like a godmother. And she told me like years ago, this was like back when I was 12. Like, so it was like years ago. But she said, and because she never had kids herself, she said, if you ever run into a situation in your life, you could always come to Texas. And so, I was like living out of my car. I was living at a friend's house, and I'm like, I think this is one of those situations.
Yeah.
and so I called her up, and I was like, hey, this is what's happening. Like, I'm sick and tired of, because I had a client, she was a celebrity recovery coach. I was building websites at the time. I'm sick and tired of, taking the train into New York, scraping every bit of money I have to go to these really fancy meetings and pretend that I have everything together. And like, I just, I'm living out of my car. I don't want to feel this broke again. I need stability. And so I went to Texas. I ended up like subletting one of the rooms in her house, so like helping out while I was there. And Texas was so soul nurturing for me. I like grew a lot as a person. I felt like I got more security and all this stuff. And I was getting clients out there, and while I was out there, I was driving to one of my client meetings, and something told me to stop at a Starbucks I had never stopped at before. And I was like, first off, I love Starbucks. But, so like things are going pretty good. And I go into that Starbucks, and I start talking to the employee there, and she is hilarious as all hell. And so we're just cracking up. We're having a good time. And turns out Panda Ross from the X Factor. So she was working at that Starbucks.
Whoa.
Yeah, because like, you don't make that much money doing that stuff, and Starbucks is stable, plus you get health insurance, all this stuff. I was like, wait, Panda? Like, what are you doing here? And so like I'm talking to her, and she ends up showing me her website, her music videos, all this different stuff that she's like working on. And it was the most beautiful website I had ever seen in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. And I was like, who did it? Who did this website? She was like, actually, it was this designer in San Francisco. And I had never been to San Francisco. I didn't know anybody in San Francisco. San Francisco was never on my travel list. It was always like San Diego or LA was where I was going to live. Gotcha. And so I kept getting signs to go to San Francisco, right? And that was the biggest sign to go to San Francisco. So I was like, you know what? Let's go. So I booked a one-way flight out to San Francisco. I had, after all my expenses, I had like $300 in my bank account going straight over there. Whoa. And but my gut was saying, do it. And I only had booked like 2 nights at a hostel. I didn't have anything planned. All I knew was that I was going to interview this girl and decide whether I was going to scale my business and like just make stuff happen and just go all in, or if I was going to quit, because I was at that position with it. Like I was getting clients, but I wasn't charging at the right rate. And also, I would be in the feast and famine mode all the time. So I would do a whole bunch of sales, then have to go into work.
Yeah.
working on all those projects, and then hadn't done sales for a while, and then do it all over again.
Got
And
it.
so I knew that for me to get out of that cycle, I needed to raise my prices and I needed to expand with the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like interviewing out there, and I remember being in the basement of that hostel, and there was a group of people like around my age, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Amanda, come with us to Golden Gate Bridge. We're going to be biking. We're going to have a fun time, all this stuff." And I'm like behind my laptop. I'm so serious at that time. And I'm like, "No, I need to get all this work done, blah, blah, blah." I was just always behind my computer screen doing work for clients.
Uh-huh.
And they just ended up leaving, and I broke down in the basement of a hostel, and I was just like, what the heck am I doing here? I said yes to entrepreneurship because I wanted freedom, because I wanted to be able to pick up and go whenever I wanted, because I wanted to create a lifestyle that supported the work that I was here to do here on earth. I'm not here to build websites. No problem to anybody who's here to build websites.
Yeah.
And that day I had to listen to my gut, and I canceled all my contracts without any like any idea on what I was going to do next. But my gut said, and this, I listen to my gut because my gut has never been wrong, and it's always directed me on the most beautiful paths. So I trust it. And um and my gut, I feel, is like my direct connection to like God's grace in my life. And so I canceled all my contracts. I like called people up and I was like, "Hey, we're finishing up in a month," or "Hey, we're doing this." And during that time, it was very awkward. It was a lot of transition. It was a lot of like, what am I doing next? But I ended up living and working in a hostel for about like 6, 7 months,
Oh,
and really
wow.
finding myself.
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco. Yeah.
Whoa. So you stayed there for that long.
Yeah. And like I met all types of people from all over the world, all
Yeah.
types of like travelers, like explorers, digital nomads. And that really opened my mind up to like just different belief systems and diversity, and like how we think, and different languages. And that experience taught me more about leadership. It taught me more about how to communicate across different borders.
Yeah, right on. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you for sharing. And for those who are watching live or watching the replay, if you can relate to having a breakdown moment, like the
Mm-hmm.
basement moment, I think we've all had some version of the basement, where it's just,
Yeah.
God says enough is enough. Like, I'm shutting down, abort mission.
Mm-hmm.
This is not serving you anymore. If you can relate to that breakdown, and then you break open moment, right? You break
Yeah.
open to see the truth for the first time. Definitely comment in the box. And also anybody who can relate to like that, that transition time. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And staying true to your values is so critical when we're experiencing big changes, because that's when I see people kind of waver the most, is when we
Yep.
have a wrench in our plans and we're like, whoa, I go back to my default habits because I'm uncomfortable and I'm triggered and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so thank you for sharing that connection to from your childhood all the way to most recently, right? I think it's so encouraging for people who are trying to who are at a transition point, or who are trying to
Yep.
figure out what the next steps are. I have a feeling a lot of folks are going to be able to relate with that. And so I'm curious, you have this awesome definition of what it means to, like, what I call courageous leadership or intentional leadership. You have a special term, and I want you to tell us more about it. Because when you said it, I was leaning in and I was like, ooh, tell me more.
Yeah. So it's inspired by Pastor Stephen Furtick, but it's called Waymaker. And when I heard it, I was like, that's what I want to be. And a waymaker is someone who essentially makes a way, right? But um, how I would define it even deeper is someone who is speaking the truth and speaking God's truth into the world through their work.
Mm.
And and it just feels good. It feels so amazing good when I look at it, because at the end of the day, we are given maybe 80, 90, 100 years to live, give or take, right?
Yeah.
The things that we are stressing out about now isn't going to matter to us in particular, like 80, 90, 100 years from now. But it will
Mhm.
matter to our grandchildren. It will matter to our great grandchildren. It will matter to our neighbors' kids. It will matter to our, our country's kids. The people who, all the babies and the kids in the world that you see today, it's going to matter to them. And
Mhm.
so when we step into being a waymaker or a leader or a thought leader or creating our personal brands, right? If the marketing term for it, for whichever,
Yeah.
is you're stepping into really showing a way for this next generation and the next generation after that to live. You're
Mhm.
creating environments so that the next generation doesn't have to stress or worry about the things you were worried about. Like the next generation has it a bit easier and a
Mhm.
bit more comforting. Like every generation's job as leaders within that generation is to make it easier for the next generation. If you're making it harder for the next generation, you're not doing your job right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yup.
Yep.
Thank you. Yep. There's a lot of connections with our current political landscape, but we don't have to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, what are we up to, and who, for whom are you making a way, maybe is the,
Yep.
um, and so for whom are you making the way? What's your biggest passion? What lights you up when it comes to thinking about you and yourself and the ways that you're opening doors for people behind you?
When I think about the people, so first thing I got to share this because it immediately popped up and I was like, I need to share it before it goes,
Yeah.
is sometimes you're going to make a way for people who do not live the lifestyle, the belief systems, do not have the same ethnicity, do not have the same sexual orientation as you, right? Example to the story we shared earlier, that would affect me, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't really affect me. Like it would affect my friend Alicia more
Mm.
being ostracized because they were attacking her.
Yeah.
I would be affected by supporting her, but not in the same way as Alicia is going to be attacked.
Right.
And so sometimes we're going to be called to help people where we don't have any skin in the game,
Mm.
right? But that's the work. That's the work we need to do the most.
Mm.
Because if one person is the only one who's fighting or the only one who's, standing up in that area, someone who is being oppressed can't be the only one fighting,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
I feel like we're getting really political, but you get what I'm saying, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, this
but
is like the
it's
whole,
true. It goes into both ends.
for sure.
And so, as courageous leaders, you're going to be guided to sometimes stand up for things that you have no stake in,
Mm.
but you know that your neighbor or your friend or your community member has stake in. So, for example, for me, I feel really called, like God put it in my heart to speak to people who are battling depression, who are anxious, and who are suicidal,
Mm.
especially male suicidal,
Mm.
because the suicide rate is so high in men.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
so, um, for me, I'm not a guy. I'm not a suicidal guy, but that's what my heart is guiding me to really support as like a long-term mission. So when I help all these thought leaders and create personal brands and rise up all these entrepreneurs and leaders, I'm creating an environment where it's safer and it's more peaceful for people to speak and to share what's on their hearts. I'm creating an environment where all these leaders say it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to speak your heart. It's okay to hire a coach for what you need, or it's okay to get a therapist. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And in fact, like, we talk about our feelings, we talk about what's happening. There's other options. Like, if you're feeling trapped in your 9-to-5 job, you could become an entrepreneur. There's like so many ways. And so that's part of being a waymaker.
That's fascinating. And there's so much that we could unpack on that, because I really appreciate the direct connections to some of our missions here, even though it wasn't maybe as intentional as you, but like, we talk about allyship in here a lot. We talk about being an ally and what it means when your neighbor needs something, or when the LGBTQ community is under attack. Like, even though you don't identify as queer or gay or lesbian, like, there's a way that you can speak up and take a stand without actually making, a scene about it, right? Like, or like, I have to live in your skin to understand, right? The power of empathy and just hosting inclusive spaces. What you do and you are really in line with our Spark principles and the whole guideline for the game that I created, because it's all about is everyone's story matters. It doesn't matter who you are. We all have a story, and we're all child. And I think we're all too quick to make assumptions or judge. And so I have so much respect and appreciation for the fact that you're blazing the trail in a different way and normalizing, like, nope, I don't have to have that life, but I can still create this powerful community that sparks. It's really powerful what you do.
Yay! Thank you. You as well. You as well. I think we're all on this journey, and we're like all like, I know it's this cheesy quote, guys, but we're all coming home to each other.
Hey, that's right. For real. I mean, we need more of that. Bring on the cheese, because we need to hear messages like that every day, to be honest. So what does that story spark for you all? I'm curious, for those watching the replay, whoever's live. I think I see Najeda and Adel, which is awesome. If you're actually watching live, right on. I just noticed. Say, hey, what's up? It's great to see you all. And yay, Jen's here.
Jen, what's up?
Explored a lot of territory. We talked about kind of Amanda's why and her definition of courageous leadership. And now to kind of zoom in on the theme of today. So today is all about why is it important to have a clear vision, to have a clear aspiration, to know where you're like the gut feeling, that that courageous kind of intuitive sense, to listen to your gut and to know, like, all right, I'm going to do something about this. Now it's not just a thought. I'm going to turn it into an intention. What would you say? How have having clear visions, aspirations, intentions guided you? Because I love your approach and how you're very adaptive and not like too attached to a particular thing, but you have a really clear North Star, and that's so aligned to our work here.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you mentioned intention, because intention was the word I chose for 2018. Get intentional. Hey, Jan, what's up, beautiful? So I think you need to declare where you're heading, but be unattached to how. Meaning that you need to put a line in the sand on where the target is at, like where you're heading towards, but be flexible along the journey. Like, be flexible on how you're going to get there, and also be flexible on whether you want that target to move or not, because you're going to grow, you're going to evolve, and you might not want the same thing you wanted 5 years ago as you do today. Right. And so I know when people talk about like manifesting or law of attraction or anything like that, they say, oh, I'm going to manifest this, or I'm going to call it in. But that's a very passive state. What you want to say is you want to declare it, right? You want to be committed to it. You want to say, whatever it is that I'm going after it with a declaring commitment. And what that involves is irregardless of, so you're at point A and you want to go to point Z, irregardless of what happens in the middle, in the journey between A and Z, you're committed to getting to Z.
Yeah.
And so what will happen in life is life will always throw you tests to see how committed you are to your end goal.
Yeah.
And that is actually a sign that it's happening. So a lot of times people say like, oh, you know, for example, I want to manifest $10,000 or I want to make $10,000 is my goal, right? What's going to happen on that journey is you might have some bills come up, you might lose money, you might have, you know, lose a client, you might have like stuff that all the signs that would point to you not having your end goal. But those are actually signs that you are on track towards your goal. If you focus with commitment and saying, irregardless of what's happening around me, I do believe that I'm going to get that $10,000 or whatnot. And so when it comes to whatever we decide is going to be our desire or whatever we decide is going to be our intention, you can't flip-flop. You can't dip your toes into your desire or into your outcome. You have to jump in with a full yes. And I think a lot of times people are very nurturing towards their comfort zone. And so they'll want to dip their toes in. They'll want to like test it. They'll want to say like, well, I want this, but I'm also okay with not having it. No, you have to be fully committed to say, I'm having this and talk about it as if it already happened and take decisive action towards that happening. And you're not going to know the full roadmap of the how of getting to that end goal. But what you will know is the next logical step. You will know the next step to take, the next step to take, and the next step to take.
Yes. I imagine, what does that spark for you all who's listening? Around like, you know, just not being attached. I think it's the core essence of Buddhism to, I think the gist of it is, and anyone who's an expert, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that it's said a lot that the root of all suffering is attachment. And so we begin to be unattached and we begin to suffer less. The less we attach to any given thing, the more we're able to be open and learn, you know, what maybe the universe is putting on our plate. We had this expectation, like I had that Z over there. Z for me was I needed to, you know, print out whatever, I don't know, write a book and sell 100 copies or whatever. And if that doesn't happen, then we get so attached that we forget that there's a reason why it's not happening. And really the universe is trying to say, hey, turn left over here. You're not meant to, you know, the destination may be New York and you're in San Francisco. That doesn't mean you have to take a direct flight. Like you may you may be designed to take multiple stops and you may supposed to be on a road trip and you've been trying to fly an airplane all this time, you know?
Yeah. And if you've ever seen, definitely Google this. It's, you could even YouTube this. There's this video by Tyler Perry and I forget the title of it, but essentially what he's talking about is whatever you want in life, sometimes God will slow you down before he speeds you up. Meaning, and he shares the story about how like he spent years struggling before he became successful. And he was saying in the video, he was like, God, like, you know, you're able to do so many things. Why are you taking so long to get me into that end goal? If that's the end goal that, you know, I can provide the most service to the most people, what's the holdup, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes God will slow you down to speed you up because you need to grow before you can step into that end goal. You need to be a different person. The person who is inhabiting Z or is inhabiting the end intention is a different person from who you are now. And so your question is, who do I need to become to be able to hold that intention? Because you can manipulate things to get to that end goal. You could do a million, manipulative things to enforce it and push it and like make that happen.
Mm,
But if you're not also doing the work of becoming that, you're going to lose it.
mm,
That's why you hear a lot of different millionaires or billionaires or whatnot. They make a whole bunch of money real quick and then they lose all of it because they weren't building who they were on the process to being able to hold it. Like
yeah,
anybody can make a lot of money real fast in a variety of different ways. And this is where integrity comes into play is, making sure you're doing stuff in with integrity, and then also making sure that you're stepping into your confidence and stepping into believing that you deserve whatever it is your end goal is. You can make money fast and keep it if you're in alignment with whatever that is.
right, right,
Mm-hmm.
right. And impact people, insert money for whatever number thing that you were talking
Yeah.
about earlier. I love the idea of there's numbers and there's impact. And you
Mm-hmm.
can have, I know a lot of really, really hardworking teacher assistants and teachers who are making 30,000 a year, working their tails off and impacting millions of lives.
Mm-hmm.
And still, integrity is something that most people, in my experience, struggle with. Right? Like we're always given these tests to see, like, what is the real impact that am I reaching all students? Am I reaching all of my stakeholders?
Yeah.
So I love the idea of thinking about those two filters in everything that we do because
Mm-hmm.
it's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Amen.
Good nuggets in here. So
Yeah.
we're getting close to wrapping up, and I'm just, as we get to this close, and folks watching the replay, definitely ask any questions you have, and we can answer those later.
Mm-hmm.
But in the spirit of just kind of wrapping, is there anything else that you feel called to share with this community who really values inclusion, diversity, connection, and cares deeply about humanity? Are you feeling anything that you want to share in this moment?
I feel like at the core, we all have the exact resources that we need right now to make things happen and to make moves. So I think a lot of times people will doubt themselves or say they're not ready or say they're not enough or that they're not safe or that they're not supported enough to take decisive action.
Mm.
Um, One of my good friends, Crystal, and we like interviewed her on this, and she said something that I ended up creating like a screen on my phone for too. Like I got a whole bunch of messages, but it's called like flow into form.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
what that means is you got to and how she does it, she meditates, you could do it through prayer, you could do it through whatever, but you have to get to really identifying and knowing yourself
Mm.
before you can take action. So flow into form, right?
Mhm.
You got to know what it is that you're gifting and what it is your energy you're giving to people. You got
Mm.
to truly know yourself. A lot of people who struggle with creating their personal brand or who, like are struggling online in their business is there's a part of them that doesn't fully know themselves.
Mm.
When you fully know yourself, you're able to fully understand and know another, right? Because we all share the same thread, which is humanity. So when I feel pain, I understand the human feeling of pain. When
Mhm.
I feel happiness, I understand the human feeling of happiness. When
Mm.
I feel, aggravation, I feel the human feeling of aggravation. We all feel human emotions the same. And
Mm.
so, really understanding you, your emotions, and what you're here for helps you to be more compassionate, more loving, step up with more integrity for other people. Like when we go back to the original story we shared earlier, with like when I
Mm.
had to make a really awkward choice, and in fourth grade, that's like some serious stuff, right?
Yeah, that's
Like
social justice.
ostracized and
For sure.
grade school is like the end of the world.
That's right.
But I felt and I knew how it felt to feel sad. I knew how it felt to feel hurt. I knew those human emotions at that time. And so
Mhm.
I would never want that even on my worst enemy to
Right.
feel those emotions. And
Right.
so something I would encourage you, if you're watching right now,
Mhm.
is ask yourself, is there like a problem or a pain point that's in the world that, you can be a solution maker for? Because, you would never want someone we've all experienced suffering, and at the end of the day you would never want someone else to feel that suffering as well.
Mhm.
So to use your platform to really support others, to use your platform to be an example of kindness, to
Mhm.
use your platform to be an example of compassion and love. And when you use your platform with that energy in mind, you're able to do massive, expansive things. You're able to impact people and transform their lives. And you're able to also support yourself. Like every external thing that you crave in the world or that some marketer is marketing to you is with the intention of you using it for something deeper than just to get it.
Right. Right. Yes. 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 Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of full circle back to your mom's very first kind of advice, like be kind. Um,
Yeah.
it's
And by the
beautiful.
way, me and my mom are doing awesome. Like we all
Aw,
have seasons. So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't we all? Well, right on. Thank you so much for
Mm-hmm.
sharing that. I'm sure it's going to benefit. When I heard the flow to form, it was a big light bulb for me because I
Yep.
thought that's adaptive leadership. I mean, all the stuff that I offer in my courses is about adaptive leadership, brain science, how we can
Mm-hmm.
facilitate experiences that allow us to both be present but also flow, which
Yep.
is an art. It's an art form, you know. So to think about the end goal of having impact that's kind of predictable in nature, or some form pathway. Maybe it's not a formula, but it's a pathway that predictably helps people. That's when we start to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
So many good things in this interview. I'm so grateful for
Yay.
you. So
This is fun. I loved it.
so for folks watching the replay and anybody who's hopping on live, how can people stay connected with you? Do you have anything on the horizon or anything you want to share with people about what you do, and if people want to stay connected?
Yeah, for sure. So you could always go to www.amandarivera.co, or, follow me on Instagram at Inspire Me Amanda, Facebook page. You can just click on my name. I do Facebook Lives on there.
Yeah.
But you could also check out the Next Generation Thought Leaders Facebook group. That's a community that both myself and Tayo, he's one of the speakers in this challenge, is that we co-host together and with the aim to create and scale mission-driven personal brands. So if you have an amazing personal brand or you have an amazing message and you're trying to figure out how to market it or how to get it out there, that's the community for you. And it's also super heart-centered. Like we share about our stories and like what's happening as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I can attest to that. It's a great space. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us in our virtual living room here in the Spark community. And
Yay!
yeah, I look forward to staying in touch. Right on. Thank you all.
Yes. See ya.
Bye, everybody.